Well, thank you for joining us today here at BrightView Health. We are excited to be able to talk with you today about just some effective strategies for helping with getting through the holidays. It's hard to believe we are at the Christmas holiday next week and the New Year's holiday right after. So today we'll be talking through some strategies just to help those in recovery during the holidays, and we look forward to sharing those things with you. Next slide. My name is Rhonda Roper. I'm the Vice President of Clinical Services here at BrightView in Kentucky. I am a licensed clinical social worker and I've been working in the field for many years. And we'll share just some things that I've found helpful with patients throughout the years, and most importantly, share some of the wisdom that I've been able to gain from our patients. Co-hosting with me today is also Missy Adams. Missy is a peer recovery supporter. She works at our Paris location, and Missy has her peer support training in Kentucky, and also works closely with training our other peer supports, and is just a very important part of our treatment team. So it's a pleasure to be partaking in this presentation with her today. Next slide. So our agenda, again, we're going to just talk through some strategies to help with staying sober through the holidays, some tips for managing work, social situations that come up, different relationships, and most importantly, some things that could be triggers. We're also going to talk through just the importance of focusing and being aware of mental health and addiction needs during this time of year, also isolation and grief, and some coping strategies for handling those things, as well as boundary setting. And also we'll share just some examples and real life situations with you as well. At the end of the presentation today, we also will have some questions and answers. We have some of the questions we obtained before the presentation today. And then again, you will have the option to add a question into your chat. So please feel free to do that if you do have a question that comes up during the presentation. Next slide. So just looking at what could cause the holidays to be a trigger. Most of the time, the holidays are a trigger just from the fact that alcohol is normalized and there are so many parties happening. Also, this can be a time of year where individuals are prone to relapse. Missy, do you want to talk through some of the reasons holidays can be a trigger?
Yes, ma'am. So it is more normalized alcohol and drug use at parties. It's more of a party atmosphere. We have the people, the crowds, the food, the financial pressure due to gift buying and traveling. I think this can be a big trigger. A lot of us, we are trying to make financial amends, whether it be with the courts or maybe we've lost custody of our children, we're paying child support. Maybe we had just recently got a job, so we're trying to pay our bills and live life on life's terms without the use of drugs and alcohol. There's more stress caused by hectic pace, traffic and crowds, and deadlines to meet. So I've noticed in the grocery stores, probably in October when they started putting out the Christmas gifts and decorations, the crowd, it was more crowded, so it takes us longer in the stores, so it can cause more stress. More traffic on the roads, it takes us longer to get where we need to go, to work, home. Normal routine of life is interrupted and the kids are out of school. So during active addiction, we did not have any structure. Most of us didn't anyways. So we work really hard in recovery to have a structured routine. So anything that throws that off can cause us stress. We stop exercising and not eating healthy. Like I said, it takes us longer in the stores. It takes us longer to get home. So we may be grabbing fast food, not having time to cook those healthy meals. There's also more cakes and candies and cookies laying around. So we may just grab something that's, convenient. It is colder and darker, so we might not take those evening walks or might not make it to the gym like we normally would. Next slide, please. The frustrations of not having time to meet responsibilities. Like I said, we run on the structured routine. We get up at the same time every day. We eat meals, go to bed. We may be used to cleaning our kitchen before we go to bed or doing our laundry. And we may not have that time to get those things done. So we get frustrated, and that could be a trigger as well. More contact with family, being around others who drink and use drugs. So some of us may still have family members that are in active addiction, or they may use recreational, and the thought of being around them, the fear of relapse and going back out into the madness can cause us stress. Increased emotions from holiday memories, including grief, loneliness, and guilt. I think this is a huge trigger for a lot of people if we haven't dealt with these. Maybe we have burnt bridges with our family, so we won't be visiting them during the holidays. Maybe we've lost a loved one while we were in active addiction, and we haven't really learned to cope with those losses yet. And the guilt of not being there for previous holidays, or maybe not being with our family. The guilt kept us in active addiction for a very long time. So increased anxiety regarding triggers and cravings. The thought, what if someone does offer me drugs or alcohol? Um, the thought of going back out into the madness. The skipping or missing self-help meetings like AA or NA, and skipping or missing therapy appointments. Like, I highly encourage not to miss these support groups during the holidays. If anything, increase these. And if you're not able to get there in person, like, there are other options now, like virtual meetings or telehealth counseling appointments. Next slide, please. Normalize substance use. Why are some drugs more acceptable than others? Well, alcohol is globally accepted and legal to consume. You can find alcohol, almost every town has a liquor store. You can find alcohol in your grocery stores, your gas stations. Alcohol kills 3 million people throughout the world every year. So almost every year you see on the news, like, there's an accident, people have lost their lives, and more times than not, it's due to drinking and driving. 1 in every 20 deaths worldwide is a direct or indirect result of alcohol. So that could be due to drinking and driving, or just the side effects from alcohol. Next slide. Alcohol and
Go ahead.
Sorry. Alcohol and marijuana are glamorized. Alcohol is a depressant widely accepted to help relieve stress. A lot of people will work a full-time job, come home in the evenings, and have a few drinks. Alcohol has been up during the pandemic, with a greater increase in misuse among women than among men. So the pandemic was hard on all of us. We're not going to work. Some of us are working at home. We're trying to teach our children. That was pretty stressful. And people turn to alcohol to cope with that stress. Marijuana is slowly become legalized in many states across the country and is starting to be considered a soft drug, with claims of fewer harmful consequences and less addictive tendencies. So marijuana does slow down the response time. And I've been hearing on the radio the commercials, about cops pulling you over for DUI, but they're also the ones, charging you with DUI for being under the influence of marijuana. And like I said, it does slow down your response time. So if someone in front of you hits their brakes, you might be less likely to hit your brakes in time, and there could be an accident. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass this over to Rhonda now.
All right. So Missy's talked about just, some of the things that can be, triggers and stressful during this time of year. And so one thing that can be really helpful for individuals is to start thinking about these things ahead of the holidays. Recognize the risks. Think about any of the individuals or events that you might be attending, and plan ahead on who or what could be a trigger there for that event or that situation. Think about the environment or the atmosphere. what components of those things, can contribute to additional stress or could contribute, to added pressure or feelings of discomfort that could increase your risks, for substance use. Thinking most importantly about what you're going to be walking into and planning for boundaries ahead of time. So boundaries can look different for different people. Boundaries could be just planning the people that you're going to interact with at an event, or maybe the persons in your family that you're going to spend your time talking with, and maybe not as much with others. And so planning for success, can be really crucial and helpful during the holidays, just in terms of thinking about what those situations might look like and preparing yourself as much as possible. If a patient sees, their parents drinking or someone in their family that reminds them of a past substance use experience or a negative experience, think about what you're going to do to handle those things. Going into those situations expecting everything to work out perfectly with no stress, certainly isn't realistic in most situations for our interactions, with others during the holidays, just based on that description that Missy gave us about it is a busier time of year. People are moving a lot faster. And then not to mention we're going to run into people that maybe we've not interacted with in a while. Next slide, please. And so in doing that, we recommend setting up a special relapse prevention plan, around the holidays. And so thinking about how, any of those work, school, or social events are going to play into the holidays, identifying those, ahead of time. And then some strategies that we found helpful is, preparing yourself for success. The acronym HALT can be really helpful. So going into any situation or event, you want to use the acronym of HALT just to prepare in terms of not going into that situation hungry. So the H there stands for hungry. If you go into any situation hungry, you're most likely going to be quick to do something. You might be more irritable. You may not have the patience or tolerance that you normally would. That's pretty safe to say for most of us, I think. And then the A there stands for angry. So again, we know going into social situations or individual events with our families, we may walk into those with some resentments or some anger, related to past interactions or relationships. And so again, identifying those ahead of time, expecting that you might run into those people, and preparing for what you're going to do, what you're going to say, etc. The L there stands for lonely. So not going into those social situations without a plan around that. Maybe you have lost friends. Maybe you've lost family members. Many of us have during this time of year. And so going into those social situations, knowing that you might be more vulnerable to interact with people and maybe not making the best decisions on your boundaries around who are those best folks to interact with. When we're lonely, we're more likely to be at risk there. And then lastly, the T there stands for tired. And so going into anything usually when you're tired usually can mean that your judgment could be impaired. You're swift to make a decision. You're not thinking things through. And so being well rested before any of these family events or again, any of these social outings. And then just to add on to what Missy had explained so well, making sure that you're following what normally has been working for you, not missing meals, keeping your sleep schedule. Focusing on that self-care in those two areas can really set individuals up for success any time of year, but most importantly during these, busier seasons of the holidays. Going into an event with the idea of volunteering can also be very effective. So when you're going into a holiday party or event, if you have something already planned that you're going to do, then that helps you to have that structure and that focus that Missy has mentioned. And so setting up a plan to help with organizing, games at the party or helping with serving the food or with the cleanup, anything that you can do to be a part and help there can really help with just structuring some time and most importantly, not putting you into risky situations. Shifting focus is also an important strategy. With that, essentially going into an event, and planning what you're going to do and how you're going to respond. Shifting the focus from "can I get you a drink" to another conversation starter. And so that's a great example of if you are hosting a party, think about that for the participants that are coming to your party or your event. I always encourage individuals to be mindful that it's not unlikely that you're going to encounter people that are in recovery or dealing with substance use issues in your family events, your social events, whatever they are. And so not being so quick to offer everyone a drink. Everyone may not want one. And so if you are serving alcohol, having that available and not pressuring others to do that, or even offering, an alcohol-free event can be helpful. And then from the perspective of the individual, attending the event, if you're in recovery and, you're offered a drink, shift the focus. You may just say, "No, thank you," and ask them a question. How have you been doing? What other plans do you have for the holidays? Shifting the focus can be very effective that way. And then considering the alternative, playing the tape, as it's called oftentimes in recovery. Think about what could happen if you do decide to start interacting with that individual again, or if you do decide to take a drink or use. Think about that and whether it is going to be an option for you to do that once, or if you do participate, what could that look like? It may be that, thinking about that from the worst case scenario and thinking about that in terms of what's most likely to happen based on what's happened in the past. Certainly not going into that thinking that it's going to be totally different this time than it was, any of the other times that you were drinking or partaking in substances. And then be prepared. We've mentioned that word a few times today so far. Just being prepared for any of these situations. Don't join things last minute or go to something without being able to sit down for just a few minutes at least. Think it through, think about who you're going to be running into. And then if you do have an individual in your life that's supportive or someone in your sober support system, talk with them about the event and some strategies that they could offer you for support. Sometimes just the option to have it where you check in with them after the event can be really helpful for you and really encouraging. And then they also, of course, really enjoy the opportunity to support you that way. And then this really fits here, just in general for this holiday season. Let go of false expectations. This can be such a joyous time of year, but it can also be a time of year that is a reminder of loss, is a reminder of grief, of things that have occurred maybe negatively during this season before. So looking at that from both angles and thinking about the fact, just the same that there could be some things that work out just as you're thinking about them for the holiday, and there can also be some things that maybe don't work out that way, but that can be a good thing. We all know that we have to think about things in terms of the good and the bad things that might occur there. Next slide, please. And then most importantly, this time of year, we certainly want to talk with you today a little bit on some strategies just to help with managing family and just relationships in general. And so again, being prepared, in those interactions. Have a few points prepared about your sobriety journey, if that is something that you're wanting to disclose to your family. It's certainly not something that you have to do, but if you do, know that your family tends to ask you questions about that, it's a good thing for you to go into those events and have some statements, have some talking points of some things that you are going to share, whether that's with your family or your peers or whomever you're interacting. And then setting boundaries. Sometimes setting boundaries can be as simple as just answering no to something. There's no more detail or description that's needed. Letting your loved ones know how you're planning to stay sober and sticking to that plan. And so, with that being said, when you're going into those events, I think the example that we shared earlier was just, I'm not going to be having any alcohol. And leave it at that. I'm not going to be partaking in any substances, etc. And then offering to help again. We looked at that previously, but any way that you can engage in those events and be a part of those can be really helpful. And so just again, some good examples there in terms of helping with cleanup, helping with organizing, serving, hanging out with the kids, whatever that may be. And then recognizing differences. Understand that not everyone is going to get it about recovery. Not everyone is going to understand. Someone may offer you a drink multiple times and you may have to say no each time and just leave it at that. It's okay to say, hey, you've asked me about a drink a couple of times. I'm not going to have anything today, and leave it at that. There's no need for further explanation. And then treating yourself. Anytime you engage in any of these events, we know there can be some stress involved. The holidays in and of themselves can be stressful. And so just as we talked about setting up that self-care plan around your diet, your sleep, exercise, also just having a plan after these events. It may be that you want to text someone in your support network. Let them know what time you're going to the event, what time you're leaving, and maybe they'll make an agreement with you to text you and check on you, or you can call them, whatever the case may be. And then some internal strategies. Participate in things that are helpful to you and stress and relaxation. Taking a bubble bath is one that comes up a lot with people that I hear. Video games, looking at movies or videos, watching TV. Some people, also enjoy outdoor time, taking a walk. That list can be, pretty extensive, but identifying some of those things that work for you, having those in the front of your mind during this holiday season can be very helpful. Next slide, please. And so we also want to be aware this time of year that mental health and addiction tend to go hand in hand. And so just as we mentioned, the holidays can be a joyous occasion. They can also be a period of a reminder of the loss of friends or the loss of family members or the loss of individuals, that you were in relationships with that may have been actively using or that perhaps you've lost, unfortunately, due to that. And so again, healthy relationships can be severed, when substance use is happening. When individuals are, in recovery, sometimes it's just a matter of setting those limitations with people that can be negative forces in your recovery. And so that may be your family. There are individuals that you may, need to avoid during the holidays. It may also come down to not attending an event due to those things. If the likelihood of you seeing most of the people at one of these events, partaking in substance use, and that's going to impact your recovery, it may be best to skip that altogether. Lowering the stakes and managing expectations, both very crucial there. Thinking again about, what some of the good things that can occur from this event, and then also thinking about some things that may potentially come up from the past. It could be that someone in your family wants to bring up things about your past prior to your recovery. It could be that happens a lot, and so think about how you're going to deal with that. It may be that you verbally respond and change the subject. It may be that you need to leave the situation with that person and go talk with someone else in your family or at that event, or it may ultimately mean, leaving the event. Protecting yourself and your recovery is the most important thing. Practicing gratitude this time of year can also be very helpful. I think this goes hand in hand with social media use. Social media, I was reading some articles just in preparation for today, and I read something that said that social media can contribute to an 80% increase in stress for most individuals. And the reason there is, I think when we look at social media, we're reminded that everything that's posted there, right, is usually a happy picture, something something good, something positive. And so if you spend a lot of time on social media and you're flipping through all those posts, and maybe you've had a crummy day, right? It's going to make that feel even more hurtful and frustrating. And so if you're noticing that you're feeling that way when you're on social media, we would encourage you to limit the use of social media and think about how social media felt last year when you were looking at it during the holidays. If that contributed to your stress, set some limitations for how much time you're going to be on that, or even, limiting the use at all. And then practicing gratitude daily in a daily practice can be very helpful to anyone. And so maybe setting up a strategy for practicing and identifying some things that you're grateful for at the start and the finish of every day. That sounds like a great way, for any of us to start our days. Just in that we're sometimes wired to think about all of the things that went wrong during the day instead of recognizing all the positive things. So that's one strategy that may be helpful to you. And then being around people, not necessarily with them. I've heard that statement through the years and thought that's so wise, just from the standpoint that sometimes if we're feeling lonely or we're feeling like we'd like to be around someone, but maybe we don't have the right people to go spend that one-on-one time with, going out to a setting where you're still around people, but you're not actually interacting with people one-on-one can be helpful. Going out and going to a shopping center, going to a coffee shop. Maybe you just go to a recovery meeting and you just decide to sit there and listen. You're not going to share anything. You're just there to take it in and hear, the wonderful words of encouragement from those around you at the meeting. Next slide, please. All right. Missy, I think I'll hand it over to you now just to talk about some coping skills that can help with this also.
Okay, preparations, restate your whys and what ifs. What if I run into someone I know? What if someone offers me something? The mock conversations, practice saying no. So, speaking about myself and several patients, I've learned that we are people pleasers. We may say yes because we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We want to make others happy. So practice saying no is really important. Have an escape plan or a reason to not attend last minute. It's okay if you say no to an invite to a get together. If you feel like it causes you more harm than good, then it's totally fine to turn that down. Next slide, please. Recognize the risk. Who or what might be a trigger for you at a certain event? Maybe it's possible that you used to use with a relative, or maybe someone in your family doesn't use, or maybe they're just negative. And we work really hard to practice to retrain our brains from negative to positive thinking. And if we're around someone that is negative all the time, that can, come on over to us. Know your environment or atmosphere. What can you expect to be walking into? Are you going to be safe? Things like that you need to ask before you go. Next slide, please. Play the tape through the end. So we use this a lot. I use this a lot myself because my disease will lie to me. The break the euphoric recall. My disease, like if I'm stressed out, it'll say, do you remember that warm, cozy hug? Like when I first started using. But I have to remind myself how all the pain that I caused, the withdrawal, the harm that I caused to the people that I came in contact, the people that love me. And ask yourself, after just one, what's next? Possibly driving under the influence, fighting with family. You worked really hard on rebuilding those relationships and, earning that trust back. Will you lose that? Decisions that can lead to remorse, hospitalizations, and jail. If you do use, you could be in an accident. You could cause harm to yourself or others. Maybe someone is still seeing probation and parole, that could cause a positive drug screen. Next slide, please. Planning or role playing with the patients. So like I said, some of us are people pleasers, so we do this a lot here. We model the scene, play out all possible scenarios in our heads. Find someone who can role play or simulate the scenario out loud. You know, support anyone in your support group. You can come in here and ask me. I will help you with those. Your treatment team will help. Use a prepared, reliable answer. Sometimes when we're offered a drink, a simple no, thank you will help. You know, we don't have to share that we're in recovery if you're not comfortable with that. Myself, I recover out loud. I let everyone know that I'm in recovery. Challenge. Have your role play partner kick it up a notch. Challenge the individual. Don't take no for an answer. You know, sometimes you may say no, thank you, and the person will not take no for an answer. They're like, come on, it's the holidays. You don't have to work tomorrow. Then, you know, you need to have backup answers other than just no. Brainstorm possible alternative answers. You can let them know, hey, I have another event to go to after this, or I'm driving, or, you know, simply, I just, you know, I want to remember tonight. Discuss possible unconventional endings, ways to ensure that safety and sobriety are the end result of the situation. So our goal is to make memories with our loved ones and our friends, to stay sober and have fun. You know, we don't get into recovery to be miserable, so make sure you do have fun and you stay sober and safe. Accountability. Take ownership of your outcome. Congratulate yourself. You work really hard in your recovery. So when you walk away and you're still sober, that is something to celebrate. So congratulate yourself. Next slide, please. Encourage boundary settings. Boundaries include physical, the need for personal space, comfort with touch, need for rest or food, and monitoring time. Mental, your thoughts, ideas, respect for the ideas of others. Like we said earlier, not everyone's going to understand why we are in recovery and why we choose not to use anyone or anymore, and that's okay. Emotional, respecting and honoring your feelings and energy. What will you share in responding to other people who respond poorly? Like I said, some people may not understand and they may think we're not fun anymore, and that's okay. Be mindful of the role of self talk. I have a right to not meet others' unreasonable expectations of me. I have a right to make my needs as important as others. You know, we did make bad choices when we were in the madness and active addiction, but that's not who we are today. I have a right to be accepting of my mistakes and failures. Yes, we made some mistakes, and that's okay. We learned from them. We're trying to do something different today. I have a right to say no without feeling guilty. I have a right to be treated with respect. Absolutely. So boundaries are really important. So make sure we set these before we go to any event. Not all relationships are positive. You know, we have changed a lot being in recovery, and we are different people today. Some people may not forgive us when we try to make amends with them, and that's okay. Our goal is to keep our side of the street clean, and it's their job to work on theirs. Be clear with expectations and boundaries. Next slide, please. I'll pass this back to Rhonda.
So this is a important, time of year just for if you do have individuals in your family that are in recovery or friends. I think all of us, encounter individuals who've been impacted by substance use daily, and so we wanted to make sure to have time just to give you some tips on what you can do to support individuals. And so express support for them, simply by just checking in on them, expressing support for them by just supporting their choice, to get sober. support, encourage them, ask them how they're doing, recognize the things, the gains that they've made. Hosting a substance-free event can be a great way to show support. I said this earlier, we're not really sure. We may have individuals in our lives who are in recovery and we don't even know about it. And so hosting a substance-free event can be a great way to do that. If alcohol is present in your events, avoid inviting people to have a drink. Maybe you are planning to have a drink. Don't encourage the people that you're, interacting with during these events to do that. Just in the event that they may be trying to protect their own recovery. And then making one-on-one time just to check in with, your friend, your family member, whoever that person is. Even if you think they're doing well, we've discussed today, this can be a stressful period of time for any individual. And so just checking in with them on how they're doing with just the holiday stress, around those things Missy mentioned around, running into people from the past, or maybe it's just the stress financially of the holidays. We all know that that's very present in our society right now for sure. Next slide. And then after the holiday event, if you're attending an event and you're a person in recovery, check in with your community and your support system. If you have thoughts of not doing that, we strongly encourage you to do it anyway. If you're not wanting to check in for some reason, there could be lots of reasons for that, but if you've had support and encouragement from those individuals, chances are they're going to offer that to you again. And it's going to give you an opportunity to talk about something that you experienced during that event or that interaction that you need to just check in on or get it off your chest. Schedule your self-care. We talked about some different strategies to do that, but put that on your schedule so you don't forget that. Sometimes our minds tend to default back to, oh, I just went to this one thing, I'll be okay. I'll just go to the next thing tomorrow and I'll do something for self-care then. Don't put it off. Make that just as important as the fact that you participated in that holiday event. For every event you participate in, focus on something for your self-care after the event and before you attend the next event. And then another reminder on just sticking to your routines and for what has worked. A good example I'd share here is just if you've been seeing, someone in your support system, maybe that's a sponsor, a recovery support, a coach, a counselor, whoever that is, if you've been seeing them weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, up to this point, don't not do that because of the holidays. Check in with them and keep those appointments as always. Stick with those routines. Same thing goes with your sleeping schedule, with whatever you've been doing for your health and wellness. If you're exercising, walking, whatever that looks like, meditating, and then even, any of your home activities. Keep those things as close to your normal schedule as possible so you don't have that added stress for mixing up something else in your life on top of these added holiday stressors. Recognizing your emotions. And so we've talked a little bit today about the fact that it's good to go into these events thinking that there's some things that are going to go well, and there might be some things that cause me some extra stress. And so being sure to debrief and recognizing, your emotions after those events. Seeking support from someone in your support system. If you don't have individuals in your support system, go to some online meetings. We're going to share some of those things with you. Again, you can just go to those meetings and listen. You don't have to actually talk or do anything. Another good strategy for just processing emotions can be to journal. Write some things down about how the event went, how you're feeling afterwards. Maybe you ran into someone you've not seen in many years and you had some mixed feelings or emotions or some grief from seeing them. Write those things down at a minimum if you're not willing to talk with someone about them. And then celebrating your wins. The fact that you were able to go to that event and stick to your plan or stick to part of your plan, whatever that looks like, celebrating those things is so important. It's just as important to celebrate the things that you did well as it is to focus on those things that you could have done better. Next slide. I think Missy's going to share just some examples of some just helpful comments and reports that our patients have shared about the holidays. Missy?
So it might be awkward for you at first if this is your first holiday spent sober around family in quite some time, but it can be awkward for both parties, and your family might not be entirely sure how to interact with you. This is your opportunity to be fully present and engaged in conversation, redeeming yourself, making up for lost time. Get to know them better and let them get to know you. Yes. Next slide, please. Remember to have fun. Recovery is being able to enjoy our lives. The Christmas lights look different in recovery. So do people's faces and smiles. We got into recovery to be able to have these experiences and be able to see things clearly. So enjoy it. So, yes, take your time and enjoy every little detail possible. Next slide, please. If you feel at risk in a situation, you're allowed to leave or avoid it altogether. There are AA or NA meetings all day and week through the holidays, and there are others who are in your shoes who are willing to be your temporary or long-term support. Yes, there are support groups all week, usually 24 hours a day. You're allowed to leave that situation if you don't feel comfortable there. Reach out to your support network. I know there is someone that is going through the same things you are right now, and they would be very happy to support you. Next slide, please. Showing up sober to a family event is worth more than any gift money could buy. Next slide. Don't stress if you don't have financial means to buy presents. Crafting or baking is a cheaper option. Writing someone a nice letter can be just as thoughtful as a physical present. Plus, your healthy, sober present is more than enough of a gift for your loved ones. Yes, my first sober Christmas, I hadn't started working, and I felt terrible that I wasn't able to get my family any Christmas gifts, but they were just so happy for me to be there. Next slide, please.
So these are just some of the questions that we received prior to the meeting today. So we want to talk through some of those. These are really helpful. So first question, what's the best way to help people stay committed to their recovery while in residential treatment throughout the holidays? And so we know, there are lots of individuals who need or use residential treatment to get their sobriety journey started. And so just ways that you can be helpful there is to check on them. First, figure out what your parameters are. Are you allowed to call? Are you allowed to send a letter? Are you allowed to visit? There are different rules sometimes depending on the programs. And so if you can have any contact with them, even if it's just sending a letter or a positive note, or even a care package, that can be so helpful for any individuals. One of the other things I think we'd offer here is just if an individual is in a residential program during the holidays, no doubt that can be, a time of feeling some loss, just to being away from family or, inside a hospital or a center, during the holidays. And so we'd encourage, individuals to really think about what was the reason for going into that treatment program? What's the end goal? Well, heck, that end goal is to not be in there next year, right? And to be able to be out, with your support system and, engaging in your holiday plans. And so focusing on the why there can be really helpful. How can I help be there for a fellow member in recovery during the holidays that may be having a rougher time than me? Missy, do you have any insights on that one?
Yes, just be there to listen. And in the rooms of recovery, they say we can't keep what we have unless we give it away. So, just being there to support someone with their struggles, it helps us stay sober. So just be there to listen to them. Maybe share your experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah. Next question. I am an employer. How can I be available to help employees? And so thank you to whoever submitted that. We know this is a stressful time of year, and so it's no secret that the work can get carried, into, or the stress can get carried into work for sure. And so if you're an employer, one of the ways that you can, be available to help employees is just by checking in on your employees, showing gratitude to them for their hard work that they're doing. And a few other things we'd offer here is just if you have the ability to offer an employee assistance program to your employees, that can be a great resource for them. We know that substance use is affecting, many individuals. And so it makes sense that employers would have that employee assistance program to be able to have that extra support, for individuals to get linked up with counseling or treatments that might be needed. Also, just educating your employees, your teams, your managers, your leadership around substance use, how common it is in our communities. It's a health issue, just like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, all of those others that are out there. So making that awareness to your employees can really help open the door up for them to be able to get help and assistance if they're dealing with that in their own lives or someone in their family. Can you give me ideas on how to still visit with family during the holidays? Missy, anything on that one?
Yes, so we may have to change things up a little bit, because we were used to being an active addiction. But, maybe you can have board games and, start new traditions. Also, stay in contact with your sober support before and after.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Are there round-the-clock meetings available? Missy?
Yes, there is an app called In the Rooms. There are AA, NA, faith-based, and they have pretty much round-the-clock meetings on there. You can also get on AA and NA websites. And almost always in every community there is around-the-clock meetings, especially around the holidays.
What is the most effective way to say no to a social drink without having to explain my sobriety front and center? That's another great question. I like the way Missy explained this earlier. Sometimes the best answer is just to say no. You don't need to give any other, explanation there. Just saying no thanks and moving on. If you find yourself in a situation where more information is needed, only share what you're feeling comfortable sharing. You may just say, "Oh, I'm not going to have any. I'm not partaking this time," and move on. That really can take some of the pressure off of having to give any specifics, especially anything, private on your end. We also just, in terms of the meetings, we also wanted to mention to you, just back on that previous question, we also added another link into the chat. It's healthyplace.com. You'll find if you go to that link, there are phone numbers and hotline numbers there. They're available also 24/7. I do believe there's some recovery coaches and things available there as well. And they run the gamut from substance use to any mental health, grief, any of those things that can be such a good help to have this time of year or any time of year. So do take a look at that over in the chat for your use. Are there any apps recommended which can help with meditation, stress, and mood management? I love that question. We talked a little bit about, just the importance of that self-care and having that self-care plan connected to any holiday event. And so even if you're not attending a holiday event, self-care is something that should be in your routine, daily if you can make that happen. Some good apps that can be helpful with that. The Calm app is free. If you just Google that Calm app, you'll find it there. I believe it's www.calm.com. And if you look at that one, there are meditations that are free there. It is a trial period that it's free, but there are lots of things that you can use on there indefinitely. And then Headspace is also one. I've used this a lot with individuals and hear really positive reports, and I've also checked it out myself. And it's got a lot of free resources for you for meditation, for stress. There are visualizations, there's audio meditations, just some really great resources there. If you also are someone that maybe is not looking for an app, YouTube, if you get on there, you can also look up meditation. There are music, soundtracks there, and also just some other great resources for you around guided meditations where someone will do an audio meditation with you. And again, that pretty endless list there, but do check some of those out. Are there resources of meetings being held in the area, resources for individuals who may not be affiliated with BrightView to be connected to with recovery coaches? Missy, I'll let you take that one.
Yes, there is Voices of Hope. They have several resources. They are amazing. They have recovery coaches. They also have in-person support groups, AA, NA, MARA. There's smart recovery meetings. There's also a 24/7 support line. You can call them 24 hours a day. There's also, you can sign up and have a recovery coach call you like once or twice a week, whatever you need. And also, you can attend their meetings through Zoom.
Yeah. And again, we've got that link over in the chat for you, so do check that out. Next slide, please. I'm just going to look now to see if we've had any other questions come in during our presentation today. And so far, I'm not seeing anything. I do want to share, it looks like we have someone added that there's an app called Relax Melodies that they thought was really helpful. So that's a new one to me. Thank you for sharing that, Erica. We'll take a look at that for sure. Positive Affirmations app is free. That's another good one as well. I did forget to mention that. That can be a really helpful way to do that gratitude expression that we talked about. So those positive affirmation apps can also be a really good resource there for you. Thank you so
Helps
much.
with that
Yeah.
positive thinking.
Yeah. And then the Insight Timer also is another free app where you can do different meditations and educations on different topics as well. And we had some feedback that the NA stuff was really helpful, and then the Voices of Hope information also. So if you've not looked at any of those things today, check out one of those or two if you've not seen them, just so you'll have them in your back pocket for use whenever you need them. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, so we'll move on to the next slide. We did want to share with you today just the fact that you are, welcome to reach out to BrightView at any time. If you are looking for support or you have someone in your family, your community, your friend, whomever that may be, there are ways that you can refer to us. You're able to call us 24/7, 833-510-4357. And that is, if you didn't see it there at the bottom, it's 833-510-HELP. And so that can be a great resource for you to get scheduled, to start getting some support if this is your, first time looking for treatment, or if you're looking to start treatment again, just for added support. You can also go online and do referrals or admissions at any time, brightviewhealth.com. And then we do accept walk-ins as well. And we do guarantee, all walk-ins will be seen until 3 p.m. daily. And most importantly, if you come in after 3 o'clock, we'll also get a plan to make sure that you get all the assessments and linked with all the services that you need. So those resources are listed for you there. Next slide, please. And then we also just wanted to thank you today, and thank you for the comments in the chat. That's really helpful. This is such an important topic this time of year, so we were really honored to be able to just share some of our knowledge and wisdom with you today. Next slide. And then we want to wish everyone just a safe and festive holiday season. We do have our contact information here. Missy's information and mine were both listed here today. And just want to again thank you for your participation and your time in joining us today. And Missy, thank you for co-hosting this with me today.
Thank you. Stay safe and happy holidays.